Mr. Senasige, you mentioned something so important. And of course, many people are now trying to think through how the private sector, as you've said, can contribute to the creation of public goods. In Sri Lanka, as you're making this transition, what is the model by which you think about where the private sector can play its most proper role and where government must play its role?
Well, it's actually, as you say, it's a double-edged sword to our part of the world if you take progressive ideas and you lose the election. So because people are very passionate about the public sector. And it's even they are not in public sector, they are not in the governance, but they're still passionate about it. That's a very attractive slogan for left politicians to say that let's keep the public service, let's spend more from the government. So energy, I would say energy, and partly health, education. We can privatize, we can get the people who can afford to spend. And Sri Lanka is a good destination for education tourism. It's a beautiful country and we have resources. So private universities were discouraged in Sri Lanka. The government which is in power, it was a Marxist government, and they were actually protesting against privatization. So that hindered our progress for a long time. And India started, I think, 20, 30 years ago, it started the transformation. Even though Sri Lanka started liberalizing and opening the economy in Asia, India took it to a different level and they started private. In Karnataka, I believe that's how India progressed. They started private universities. But Sri Lanka, we could not do it because there was a lot of protest. Privatization of hospitals, people who could afford. I would suggest, when I was a minister, I was telling them even government hospitals have a paying ward where people can pay and maintain the hospital. But that was discouraged by the public servants saying that, no, it should not be, it should have this monopoly, we should control. So you must encourage the mindset also have to change. So it's different from your part of the world to our part of the world. And there's a lot of corruption in our part of the world, but you all have gone through that 30, 40 years ago. With progression, I think with development, I think that would happen. But as policy makers also, we must be bold enough we must be attractive enough to, charismatic enough to do the change and then win an election also, which is not easy. When you take decisions, progressive decisions, it's always not attractive. Good things are not very attractive. So you have to be bold and take that. And India has been able to, the bureaucracy is very strong in India. So our part of the world, when leaders change, the policies change totally, completely. And it's not the same in your part of the world. You all have a system. So India is a big country. India has, I think, gone forward. When Manmohan Singh brought these changes, the governments, progressive governments, continued with the strong bureaucracy. So but our countries, Pakistan, Bangladesh, Sri Lanka, Maldives, leaders changed the policies totally. So it's a zigzag way of going forward, which have actually hindered our development.
Government has to address the suffering, the bleeding, the needs of its people in the moment, but it also has to invest in the future. Understanding what is needed in the future and where that investment should go. What are the best approaches you've seen to this? Sir, I start with you. To understanding from the longer term perspective, what do we most need, and investing there. How in Sri Lanka do you make the case for those investments, or is it difficult?
It's not difficult. It's, when it comes to investment, I think it will be easier. Welfare, it will be a bit difficult for the private sector to get. So two areas where we have to separate investment and welfare. So welfare we have to maintain to keep the people, actually give them the basics. But in investment, I would say it's a good idea. We were talking about the highways. So what we would suggest, coming from Asia, we would get private companies to come and invest on highways, let's say highway, and for them to collect toll money for about 20 years and then hand it over to us. So we had in India, when Mr. Adani wanted to come to Sri Lanka with a wind power project, 500 megawatts wind power, it's I think 1 gigawatt, 500 megawatt wind project. So transmission line, they were going to spend $20 million on it, and after 10 years, they were going to hand it over to Sri Lanka. So that's a way of investing, getting investment from outside. Japan Railways, and I would, if I'm in power, if I can take a decision, I would invite Japan to do our railroads and for them to collect toll money for about 20 years and then hand over the system to us, because then the government is not spending on it and we are making money out of it as well. So that's a way that we can get investment to come in and for them to make the money and then for us to get rewards from that.
Fantastic. Thank you so much. And gentlemen, this idea of investment, this balance between having less but needing to do more, how are you managing it, sir?
So actually, Sri Lanka was struggling with this issue, and we went bankrupt a few years back, about 3-4 years back. Because Sri Lanka is spending, we have free education, free health, but our indexes are quite good because of that. Literacy rate is about 95%. Life expectancy is about 80. We are quite close to European standards. But at the same time, the debt is a huge problem and corruption is a huge problem. Debt is about 100% with all this public spending. So we have to strike a balance, and I would always advise to less government and to, because we have a lot of, we have about 1.5 million of public servants, and that the salary package is a huge burden for the government. It should be about 500,000 in reality. But people have got used to this left sort of idea that I think in India also it's a similar situation. Everybody likes to have a government job, to have a pension, to relax. But supply and demand, I would believe in supply and demand so that the private sector always gets the best efficiency. So I would always, for us to come out of this problem, for us to have a growth rate like in India, 7 point, we haven't had over 7 for a long time. That's mainly because the government spending and wastage, and as my colleague said, corruption as well. So less corruption if it's privatized, most of the areas, except for the most important areas, to keep for the government and to have more private sector and less government. Because if you take an example, if you have a vehicle given to you by the government, you know how you maintain it. But if it's your own vehicle, you know how you maintain it. Total different concepts. When it's yours, it's different. When it's the government, it's totally different. And we see it everywhere. So less government and more private get you involved. You're responsible for your, otherwise it's not going to, because especially our countries, we have been too much government spending.
Very clear. Thank you.